Hey guys, what's going on? Scott here, and this is just a unscripted, quick view of what I'm thinking about the new patch so far, the whole Deathslinger. In terms of all the perks and stuff like that, I'd probably leave that for a separate video because that can still be changed. I will just say right now, Hangman's Trick is that's just getting nerfed because they made it like the best tracking perk in the game. It's hilariously good. It is much better than barbecue and chili, but I feel like they're gonna nerf that anyway. The actual killer. And the whole, like one of the main arguments I'm seeing, is he better than Huntress? Is he worse than Huntress? Is he about the same? Because, naturally people want to compare things like, long range killers. And if you have an attack at long range, who's going to be better? Because they have a kind of similar power. They have the same move speed and things like that. So, after my time playing with him, so far, obviously this could definitely change. This is early and not meant to be taken as my final opinion on it. That needs to be very clear. But compared to Huntress, I think he is definitely a little bit weaker than Huntress. And that's not really an insult, considering I think Huntress is one of the few killers in the game that can actually deal with almost any team, given a not terrible map. So being a little bit weaker than Huntress does not mean he's weak at all. He's actually a pretty good killer. But I do think Huntress has a couple of more upsides to him than he does. So first off, like strength-wise, he is, he's got instant aim compared to Huntress, which is really nice. You can pretty much just quick scope, and people have very little time. Like, because, when you ready a hatchet, people can start juking. And I don't find it as much of a big deal because you can just hold the hatchet, and then they'll start juking, and then they're juking early, and you're not even throwing the hatchet yet. So it's not a big deal. So I've never really found that to be a huge downside. But it is nice. It is nice being able to just immediately shoot as you're around a corner. There are a couple of scenarios where you will get a hit where Huntress would not be able to get a hit there. So that is definitely nice. Another great thing about him is his tear radius is 24 meters. Huntress is a 20-meter tear radius, but as you know, she has a giant humming radius as well. So he actually, with Monitor and Abuse, is pretty sneaky. He's got a 16-meter tear radius with that. So that is surprisingly sneaky. And that can let you get that first hit a lot easier than Huntress can. Again, depending on the map, you can still get a long-range hatchet if people are not paying attention, but he's much sneakier than Huntress, which is very useful. Another good thing about him is he tends to negate exhaustion perks with his chain. Huntress hits a long-range hatchet, they can just sprint burst and go 8,000 miles away. If you hit them with a chain, they sprint burst and they just don't go anywhere. They just get pulled right back to you. So you can negate exhaustion perks with that. Other than Dead Hard, there's actually a glitch with Dead Hard where if you dodge the harpoon, you do not get exhausted and the harpoon is canceled. So that's a pretty bad bug they got to fix. But for the most part, he can negate exhaustion perks, balance landing to really any of them, which is really cool. As you can see here, you can also drag people down multiple floors given the right scenario if you've got a hole up there. But that's it. People always list this as a positive thing to him, but there's like 3 or 4 maps in the game that have like multiple floors that would allow you to actually pull somebody down like that. So it's extremely situational and barely a plus. It's awesome when you get to do it, but hell, even on this map, sometimes there's just a wall in the way and you can't even bring them down. So it's cool, but if they're injured, it doesn't do anything most of the time. Now, one of the big things is his actual chain has a very small hitbox. It's very, very small. Compared to the hatchet, it is like a needle. So it is significantly harder to actually hit people at range. However, it has the upside of you being able to actually shoot your chain through small holes that the Huntress cannot throw a giant whale-sized hatchet through. Now, the trade-off is sometimes when you do, hit a chain around that kind of, if you hit that kind of shot, a lot of the time it doesn't matter because like you're shooting like, earlier through that railing and oh cool, you hit a shot Huntress camp, but what do you get from it? If they're injured already, they just go into deep wounds and mend and then you're just still looking at them and nothing really has happened. He lacks the downing power, which is, I think the main comparison to Huntress that makes him a bit weaker, but I'll cover that in a second. As far as his soul upsides, those are basically his soul upsides. Now, he has a couple of, like, mixed upsides. One of them is no reloading at lockers, which is nice, but he also only gets 1 shot. Now, I don't view reloading at lockers on most maps as that big of a deal, because a good Huntress, if she's reloading at a locker, 9 times out of 10, it is because she's already down someone and she's got a second of breather time. And it doesn't matter that she has to reload because she's just going to go out of the way. She's not chasing anybody. She's not really not really losing anything. She's just doing it because she already downed somebody. With this killer, you will have to basically reload and chase very often, and as a 110% move speed killer, that is not good because as you're reloading, they're getting further and further away a lot of the time because his chain has a limited range as well in comparison to Huntress, who has unlimited range with their hatchets. If you just hold W, you can just run out of range while he's reloading a lot of the time. And him being slower than normal killers is hugely detrimental there. So not having to reload is very nice, or not having to reload at lockers is nice, but the fact that you get only one shot kind of counteracts that. And yeah, like I said, most Huntresses, that when they're reloading, the chase is already over. They've already downed somebody. So it's not that big of a deal. Things I would do so far, well, let me go over why I think Huntress is stronger. The main difference between this killer and Huntress is Huntress has the snowball potential, and this killer doesn't really have that as much. He can kind of do it, but he doesn't have it as much. And I think snowball potential, especially in a world where Rune doesn't exist anymore, is basically one of the most important measures of how good a killer is. That's why Billy is so good, that's why Nurse is so good, that's why Spirit's good, that's why Huntress is good, because they all, in a span of 30 seconds, can down multiple people very, very fast. And this killer can kind of do that, he just can't do it as fast as Huntress. If you've ever seen a good Huntress play, if you have multiple people in the same area, like the Huntress 9 times out of 10 is going to down people very, very fast. And that's just because of the range to melee combo, and that's, the thing that makes Huntress so good. You can down someone almost instantly. Where this killer, if they're healthy, you got to shoot them, drag them in, hit them, reload, chase them, hit them, drag them in. You have to do multiple things to actually, confirm a down on somebody. You can get people injured very easily, and he reminds me of like a ranged Legion because of that. He's very, very good at getting people into the injured state. He's better than most, actually. He's probably as good as Legion at doing that, honestly. But the problem is actually downing people. And that is where I think Huntress will take the lead over him, because Huntress at range can just straight up down people, while if they're injured, if you have any object in the way whatsoever, you're just going to put them into the injured and, mending state again. You're not actually going to down them, which is kind of silly because you're hitting them with a fucking harpoon in the face. But it is what it is. So I think that is the main separator right now. Again, I've only been playing him for a little over a day now, so opinion's going to 100% change. But to me, it seems like that is the big differentiator between him and Huntress, and why Huntress I think is a little bit better. Because, if you're going against good teams, the only way you're going to win is snowballing. You're not going to win by getting 12 hooks. It's impossible. You will never, ever have enough time. So snowballing is the only real option you have, and Huntress just simply does it better. She can down multiple people faster than this killer can, and I think that's the main reason why she's going to be better. In the actual individual chase, there are pluses and minuses to each killer, so it kind of evens out. But yeah, like I said, the main differentiator is the snowball effect, which this killer has definitely less of than Huntress. Things I would do to change him, to make him maybe on par with Huntress. There are a couple things. Man, I say a lot when I don't have when I don't have a script. That's fine. So the multiple things I would change, I would only pick one of these things. I wouldn't change all of these things. Just like how I did this with Oni. I said a bunch of suggestions, and I really only wanted one of the things changed. So first would be to drag over pallets. I think being able to drag people over pallets would be fine. I don't think it'd be overpowered. It'd basically put him at the same threat level as Huntress. When you're running at a pallet, it would give you that same kind of 50-50 that you have against a Huntress when you're running through the pallet. Is she going to throw a hatchet? Is she going to run through it? And that would, put him on a kind of similar level, at least in the close range. That is probably on the stronger end of changes, though. Probably the least likely to be implemented, so that's fine. I'm just kind of throwing out the ideas out there now. The next one that would be probably more easy to add would be significantly increased struggle time. Because a lot of the time when even if you get a great shot on someone, if they're grinding against an object, giggity, it really, really speeds up how fast that bar goes. Unless you have add-ons to slow it down, that bar goes away in like less than 2 seconds. It's extremely fast. And as we all know, most maps in this game are not just open fields, so this is going to happen a majority of the time, and you won't be able to get a hit. Again, depending on where you are. The loops, it depends on the loop that you're at. Sometimes you can run around it a couple times, and you'll be close enough to where you actually can get a hit, but for the most part, this is another reason that Huntress I think is a little bit better because a lot of the time when you get a hit, you just kind of grind them against an object and you get closer to them, and maybe next time you reload, you'll be able to hit them, but you still don't actually get the hit. Another thing you could change is just simply making him 150 move speed. Very simple change. He would have weaker long range than Huntress, but he would be better at close range because he'd be a little bit faster and he'd be the normal killer speed. I think that's probably the simplest change. It's the most boring change, but I think it's the most simple change. Also, I remember the devs saying they didn't want to make 110 killers anymore. I don't know why they went back on that. 110 killers are usually supplemented by some type of movement ability or the ability to pressure people at range in some way. This killer doesn't really have any of that. That's probably the worst part about him. He's got pretty much zero map pressure. And again, in a world without Rune, that is an extremely bad downside. So at least Huntress can chuck hatchets at generators across the map. This guy only has an 18-meter range on his chain, so he can't do that. He has zero map control, and that's definitely bad. So giving him normal move speed would be really nice. Or, like I just said, giving him longer range on his chain would be nice, and giving him increased struggle time to compensate. Make him a bit more, skilled. Or have a skill cap, rather, because hitting those long range shots is very, very hard with this killer, because the hitbox is tiny, tiny, tiny. So giving him longer range on that would be, I think, actually pretty cool. And it would lead to a lot of higher skill cap moments, which would be probably the most fun of the suggestions. Overall, sorry, I just woke up and I've been having some health issues, so my voice is a little meh. But that is, I think, overall my initial opinion on the killer. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm trying to think of any other points I missed, but like I said, no script here, just giving my initial thoughts. I'm going to play him again today and keep thinking about it, keep trying to get better at him, because he's fun as hell to play. I love playing him, but so far I think he's a bit weaker than Huntress, but that is it for now, guys. Thanks for watching. Take it easy. Have a good one.